Welcome to Motivational Humanity. You are not alone. Good afternoon, everyone. We all yearn to belong, to find a place where we're accepted, valued, and understood. But what happens when the path to belonging isn't outside of us, but within? Braving the wilderness isn't about finding a trail others have paved. It's about forging one yourself. Today, I want to explore the essential ideas about courage, connection, and the power of stepping into the unknown. True belonging starts with the courage to embrace who we are, not who we think others want us to be. It's easy to confuse fitting in with belonging, but they couldn't be more different. Fitting in often demands that we conform, hide parts of ourselves, or mold our identity to match the expectations of others. Belonging, on the other hand, requires authenticity. It asks us to stand in the fullness of who we are, imperfections and all, and trust that our worthiness is not up for negotiation. This can feel daunting because we live in a world that constantly tells us we're not enough, not smart enough, not attractive enough, not successful enough, the list goes on. These messages seep into our hearts and make us doubt our value. But here's the truth. Belonging doesn't come from external validation. It comes from the deep, unwavering belief that we are worthy just as we are. Self-acceptance is not about liking everything about ourselves or pretending we don't have flaws. It's about recognizing that our imperfections are part of what make us human. When we stop trying to live up to an impossible standard of perfection, we make space for compassion for ourselves and for others. Self-acceptance is saying, this is me and I am enough, even on the days when we feel far from it. Belonging to ourselves first is the foundation for building meaningful relationships. If we can't accept ourselves, we'll spend our energy trying to earn the approval of others, which can leave us feeling disconnected and unseen. But when we show up authentically, we give others permission to do the same. We create connections that are real and lasting because they're built on the truth of who we are, not on who we're pretending to be. It's not always easy. There will be moments when embracing yourself feels like standing in a storm. The fear of rejection, the pull to conform, the discomfort of vulnerability, they're all part of the journey. But each time we choose to stand firm, we strengthen our sense of belonging. And the more we practice self-acceptance, the more resilient we become in the face of life's challenges. True belonging isn't a destination, it's a practice. It's a commitment to choose ourselves over and over again, even when it feels risky. Because when we belong to ourselves, we carry that sense of belonging with us, no matter where we go or who we're with. Courage is not something reserved for grand heroic acts. It's woven into the small, everyday choices we make. It's the decision to show up as our true selves, even when we're unsure how we'll be received. Courage often begins with the smallest acts, choosing honesty when it feels safer to stay silent, stepping into vulnerability when we're tempted to armor up, or trying again after we've failed. The truth is, courage doesn't mean the absence of fear. It means acting in spite of it. Fear is a natural part of the human experience, especially when we're stepping into the unknown. But courage asks us to lean into that discomfort, trusting that what's on the other side is worth it. It's about saying, I'm scared, but I'll do it anyway. That's what makes courage powerful. It's not about being fearless, but about being brave enough to take the next step. Every day presents opportunities to practice courage. It could be in the way we communicate with others, choosing to have a difficult conversation rather than avoiding it. It might show up in our willingness to admit we're wrong or to ask for help when we're struggling. Courage is also about advocating for ourselves, setting boundaries, and saying no when something doesn't align with our values. These moments may seem small, but they're not insignificant. Each time we choose courage, we reinforce the belief that we are capable and worthy. Courage is a muscle, and like any muscle, it grows stronger with use. The more we practice it, the easier it becomes to act in alignment with our true selves. But that doesn't mean it's ever completely easy. There will still be times when courage feels like a battle, when the risk of being vulnerable feels too high, or when fear tries to convince us to stay small and safe. These moments are when courage matters most because they're the ones that have the power to shape our lives in profound ways. It's important to acknowledge that courage doesn't always lead to immediate success or validation. Sometimes the reward for being brave is simply knowing you stay true to yourself. But over time, these acts of courage add up. They build resilience, deepen our relationships, and open the door to possibilities we never imagined. Ultimately, courage is about showing up fully, authentically, and wholeheartedly. It's about being willing to face the uncertainty of life with an open heart, knowing that the effort to live bravely is its own kind of victory. And when we commit to practicing courage daily, we create a life rooted in authenticity, connection, and a deep sense of purpose. The wilderness, both metaphorical and literal, is where growth happens because it is in the untamed, uncharted spaces of our lives that we encounter the opportunities to evolve. We often seek comfort, predictability, and stability, but growth doesn't flourish in those environments. Growth occurs when we step outside of our familiar terrain, when we embrace uncertainty, and when we confront the challenges that make us question our assumptions, beliefs, and capabilities. The wilderness is where we shed our old skins, face the parts of ourselves we've ignored, and discover new strengths we didn't know we had. Well, it's in the wilderness that we experience discomfort, the kind that pushes us beyond the boundaries we've set for ourselves. This discomfort can feel like a deep sense of vulnerability, uncertainty, or even failure. But it's precisely this discomfort that creates the fertile soil for transformation. Without the tension of being stretched, we remain stagnant. Without the challenge of the unknown, we never realize how much we can grow. When we face the wilderness, we don't just encounter the external world and all its unpredictability. We encounter the inner landscape of our fears, hopes, and aspirations. Oftentimes, when we reclaim our true self or our true gifts, what makes the wilderness so powerful is its ability to disrupt our assumptions and force us to rethink who we are and what we're capable of. It's easy to live life within the confines of what's comfortable and familiar, to play it safe and avoid risk. But real growth happens when we face the things we'd rather not confront. The wilderness might ask us to step into a new job, a new relationship, or a new identity. It might call us to face grief, disappointment, or failure. It may require us to take risks and make mistakes. But in each of these moments, we're expanding our understanding of what's possible for our lives. And while the wilderness can feel isolating and daunting, it's also where we find our deepest reservoirs of resilience. It's where we learn how to navigate the chaos, how to trust ourselves in the face of uncertainty, and how to find our way when the path is unclear. Growth is not a linear process. It's messy, uneven, and full of setbacks. There will be moments when we feel like we're lost, moments when we question whether we're on the right path, but these moments are not failures. They're part of the growth process. They are reminders that we are stretching, learning, and evolving. The wilderness is also where we build a deeper connection to our own inner wisdom. When the noise of the outside world fades, we can hear our own voices more clearly. We begin to trust our instincts and our intuition, learning to make decisions based not on external validation, but on what feels true to our hearts. The more we navigate the wilderness, the more we understand the importance of trusting ourselves, even when the world around us is unpredictable. Ultimately, the wilderness isn't something to fear. It's something to embrace. It's the place where we are forged, where we become more of who we are meant to be. It's where we uncover our capacity for strength, vulnerability, and growth. The wilderness is where we learn that we don't have to have all the answers and that it's okay to take one step at a time, even when the path is unclear. In the wilderness, we discover that we are capable of far more than we ever imagined, and that in the end, it's the journey itself that shapes us into the people we were always meant to become. Connection requires us to be willing to show up, not just physically, but emotionally, with all of who we are. It asks us to step into vulnerability, to put down the armor that shields us from discomfort and risk, and to engage in the kind of conversations that truly matter. These conversations aren't always easy. They can be messy, uncomfortable, and full of uncertainty, but they are the key to building genuine, lasting connections with others. Brave conversations are those that move beyond surface-level exchanges. They involve speaking from the heart and listening with the intention to understand, not just to respond. They're the conversations where we bring our whole selves to the table, our fears, our hopes, our imperfections, and ask the same of others. These conversations require courage because they push us to confront things that often feel too risky to discuss. Whether it's expressing our feelings of hurt, sharing our dreams and aspirations, or admitting our vulnerabilities, brave conversations require us to stand in the truth of who we are. One of the greatest fears in connection is the fear of rejection. We worry that if we reveal too much of ourselves, others might not accept us. This fear can cause us to hold back, to keep parts of ourselves hidden, and to keep our conversations safe. But when we do this, we rob ourselves of the possibility of real connection. The irony is that when we are willing to show up as our authentic selves, we invite others to do the same. It's in these moments of vulnerability that the deepest bonds are formed. True connection doesn't happen when we're pretending to be something we're not. It happens when we let our guard down and allow ourselves to be seen. Brave conversations are also about being willing to engage in conflict when it arises. We often shy away from difficult conversations because we fear confrontation or misunderstandings. But avoiding tough conversations only leads to resentment, miscommunication, and distance. Addressing conflict with openness and respect is one of the most powerful ways to build trust and deepen connection. When we engage in difficult conversations, we show that we care enough about the relationship to work through the discomfort and find a resolution. It's through these courageous exchanges that we learn more about each other, build mutual understanding, and strengthen our bonds. Listening is just as important as speaking in brave conversations. To truly connect with another person, we must listen, not just to their words, but to the emotions behind them. Listening with empathy means putting aside our own judgments, our assumptions, and our agendas to truly hear the other person's experience. It means being present with them without rushing to fix or offer solutions, but simply holding space for their truth. In many cases, the most important thing we can do in a brave conversation is to listen without interruption and allow the other person to feel seen and heard. One of the challenges of brave conversations is that they often involve moments of discomfort. Whether we're sharing something vulnerable about ourselves or navigating a difficult topic with someone else, there will be moments when the conversation feels heavy, awkward, or emotionally charged. But these moments are not signs of failure. They are part of the process of building deeper connection. They are reminders that real connection requires effort and that growth happens when we push through the discomfort of vulnerability and engage with each other honestly. The reward of these brave conversations is worth the discomfort. They bring us closer to each other, deepen our relationships, and allow us to build trust. Through them, we learn not only about others, but also about ourselves. We discover our capacity for empathy, resilience, and love. We realize that connection isn't something we find. It's something we create through the courage to show up, speak our truth, and listen deeply. And in this process, we discover that the more willing we are to engage in brave conversations, the richer and more meaningful our connections with others become. Ultimately, connection is about mutual vulnerability. It's about opening up to another person in the same way we hope they'll open up to us. It's about moving beyond our fears of rejection and judgment and trusting that by showing up authentically, we are creating space for others to do the same. Brave conversations may not always be easy, but they are always worth it. Because in these moments of vulnerability, we build the relationships that sustain us, the ones that give us the courage to continue showing up, not just for others, but for ourselves. Standing alone is often misunderstood as a form of isolation, but standing alone doesn't mean separating yourself from others. It means having the strength to remain true to yourself, even when doing so feels like being on the edge of the world. It's about not losing yourself in the crowd or compromising your values for the sake of fitting in. To stand alone is to hold your ground, to walk a path that may not always be the most popular or the easiest, but is aligned with who you truly are. It requires deep self-awareness and an unwavering belief that your worth isn't determined by external approval or the validation of others. The fear of standing alone often arises from our instinctual need to belong. Humans are social creatures, and the desire to be accepted, understood, and loved is natural. However, this desire can sometimes push us to make choices that compromise our integrity. When we are afraid to stand alone, we often conform to the expectations or opinions of others, even when they conflict with our own values. We put on masks and wear them to fit in, even if it means suppressing parts of who we are. In these moments, we lose sight of our own identity in the hopes of being accepted by those around us. Standing alone doesn't mean cutting ties or living in complete isolation. In fact, it's the opposite. It means having the courage to set boundaries, to say no when something doesn't feel right, and to prioritize your own well-being even when others might not understand. When we stand firm in our own truths, we give ourselves the freedom to engage with the world from a place of authenticity. We create space for relationships that are rooted in mutual respect, where we don't have to compromise who we are to be loved or valued. The paradox is that by standing alone in our truth, we open the door to deeper, more meaningful connections. There will be times when standing alone will feel isolating. It's not easy to walk a path that isn't always supported by the people around you. We may feel misunderstood, lonely, or disconnected from others. But in these moments, it's essential to remember that standing alone is not about rejecting others. It's about embracing who you are, regardless of the external circumstances. When we make choices that reflect our true selves, even when they feel uncomfortable or difficult, we gain a deeper sense of purpose. We learn to rely on our inner strength, to trust that our decisions are aligned with what's best for us, not what's easiest. And so, moreover, standing alone is also about finding peace in solitude. It's in these quiet moments when we're not distracted by the noise of the world or the opinions of others that we reconnect with our inner wisdom. Solitude doesn't have to be lonely. It can be a powerful tool for reflection, growth, and self-discovery. It's in solitude that we can hear our own voice, untangle our thoughts, and make decisions that are true to our hearts. Solitude helps us remember who we are and who we want to become, so that when we do engage with others, we are doing so from a place of clarity and purpose. However, standing alone is not about complete detachment from others. It's about recognizing that while relationships are an important part of life, they should never come at the expense of our sense of self. It's possible to be connected to others while maintaining our independence and individuality. We can stand firm in our own beliefs and still honor and appreciate the perspectives of others. It's about striking a balance between independence and connection, where we stand strong in our own identity while remaining open to the relationships that enrich our lives. The danger of isolation, however, is when we let our fears of rejection, vulnerability, or difference push us into withdrawing entirely. Isolation often comes when we shut ourselves off from others in an attempt to protect ourselves from pain or disappointment. While standing alone can be empowering, isolation can make us feel disconnected from ourselves and from the world around us. Isolation can occur when we withdraw emotionally or physically from others out of fear that our authentic selves won't be accepted. But this kind of disconnection only leaves us feeling more lonely and adrift. Standing alone is about self-reliance. It's about trusting in your ability to navigate the world and make choices that are right for you. It's not about abandoning others, but rather about finding the strength to hold on to your values, beliefs, and identity in the face of external pressures. It's about knowing that while we may stand alone at times, we don't have to isolate ourselves. We are worthy of belonging, but we must first belong to ourselves before we can truly connect with others in meaningful ways. And in the end, standing alone isn't a sign of weakness or rejection. It's a sign of strength, clarity, and self-respect. It is only when we embrace the courage to stand in our truth, even when it feels like we're walking alone, that we truly begin to see ourselves for who we are. And that is the foundation for a deeper and more authentic connection with others. Braving the wilderness isn't easy. It's brave, messy, and often uncomfortable. But it's also the path to becoming your truest self, a self who belongs everywhere because they belong to themselves first. Let's honor the wilderness inside us all and commit to stepping into it over and over again. Thank you.